In 1954, a brakeman's wife named Ruth Lindquist lived in a small white clapboard house on the east side of Duluth, Minnesota. Her husband brought home $82 a week from the Northern Pacific. They had 4 children, a mortgage of $41 a month, and a coal bill that ran them ragged from October to April. Ruth ran that household on a green ledger book she kept in the kitchen drawer, and at the end of every year, the book closed in the black. Not by much, but in the black. She darned her husband's wool socks until the heels were 3 layers thick. She rendered the bacon fat into a tin can on the back of the stove. She turned the collars on her boys' Sunday shirts when the front wore through. She bought 1 tube of toothpaste a month for a family of 6. By the time the next check came on Friday, Ruth had already saved more than the check itself, in moves so quiet nobody in the house ever noticed her making them. She was not unusual. From the mill houses of Pawtucket to the bungalow streets of Bakersfield, American women ran households on a set of small daily moves that kept the family one step ahead of the bill collector. We threw those moves out the moment a credit card promised us we did not have to make them. We let the ledger book go. We started buying the way out of every problem. This was not thrift. This was knowledge. A woman raised this way could feed 8, clothe 6, heat a house through a Minnesota winter, and still put $2 a week into a coffee can on the top shelf. We mistook complication for progress. We replaced the ledger book with a credit line. We are paying for the trade every month at interest. A quick note before we begin. This is historical and educational content, not financial or medical advice. For your own situation, please consult a professional. Number 19 on this list. Let a 1955 housewife stretch 1 chicken across 4 separate suppers without anyone at the table noticing. Number 14 went against every modern instinct, the heels of the bread most kitchens throw away, built the Saturday dessert nobody at the table knew was free. And number 2 was the single rule Grandma taught her daughter on her wedding day, the 11 words that built every working-class American household for 50 years and were quietly retired the moment the credit card arrived. These 25 tricks were not about being cheap. They were about being capable. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 lost 1950s housewife tricks that kept hard-working families out of debt. Number 25. The bacon fat tin. Behind the stove sat a tin can with a slotted lid. Every strip of bacon, every pan of sausage, every roast, the fat got poured in and saved. You greased the cast iron with it. You fried the eggs in it. You started the gravy with it. For a coal miner's wife in 1956 in Harlan, Kentucky, feeding 7 on $12 a week of groceries, the tin replaced an entire bottle of cooking oil every month. Crisco cost 49 cents a can. The bacon tin cost nothing. About $12 a year in a household where $12 was a week of suppers, not garbage. Inventory. Number 24, the sock darning egg. A wooden egg the size of a goose egg kept in the sewing basket. When the heel of a sock wore through, you slipped the egg inside, stretched the fabric tight, and wove a patch with darning yarn from the unraveled cuff of a sweater the boys had outgrown. For a Pittsburgh steelworker's wife in 1957, with 3 boys who walked 2 miles to school each way, a pair of wool socks lasted 4 winters instead of 1. A new pair cost 85 cents. About $40 saved across a decade. Not mending, multiplying. Number 23, the turned collar. When the front of her husband's good shirt frayed at the neck, the shirt was not finished. You unpicked the collar with a seam ripper, flipped it backwards, and stitched it down with the worn side facing in. A white dress shirt cost $3.75 at Sears in 1958. For a parsonage wife in 1958, rural Ohio, whose husband wore a white shirt every Sunday at the pulpit, the trick saved $4 a year on shirts she could not have justified buying. $40 across his ministry. Not a repair. A second life. Number 22. The newspaper window insulation. When the November wind came down off Lake Erie, the sash windows lost the heat as fast as the furnace made it. You stuffed crumpled newspaper into the gap between the upper and lower sash. You taped a second sheet to the inside of the worst panes. The newspaper came from the stack on the back porch, 2 days old, free. For a Cleveland streetcar conductor's wife in 1959, the coal bill dropped $7 a month from December through March, about $28 a winter. A new storm window cost $11 per pane. Yesterday's paper. Number 21. The single-tube toothpaste rule. 1 tube of Colgate a month for a family of 6. You squeezed from the bottom, never the middle. You rolled the tube up as it emptied, holding the roll with a wooden clothespin. When the tube seemed empty, you cut it open with kitchen scissors and got another week. For a railroad clerk's wife in 1956, Topeka, Kansas, with 4 children, the rule saved about 90 cents a month over the family that bought 2. About $11 a year. Not stinginess. Geometry. Number 20. The soup bone Sunday. The butcher gave the bones away for free if you asked, and you asked every Saturday. You browned the beef shank in the cast iron with an onion, covered it with cold water, and simmered it on the back of the stove from Saturday afternoon until Sunday morning. The stock fed the family Monday and Tuesday. For a Polish grandmother in 1955, Hamtramck, Michigan, the free bone became 2 suppers and a quart of broth that froze for January. A canned soup cost 15 cents. The bone cost about 4 cents and fed 8. Not a giveaway. A foundation. Number 19. The 4-supper chicken. A single roasting chicken, $3 at the butcher, fed a family of 6 across 4 nights. Sunday was the roast with potatoes and gravy. Monday was chicken and dumplings from the leftover meat. Tuesday was chicken salad on heel-end bread for lunch and a noodle casserole for supper. Wednesday was the bones simmered into stock for Thursday's soup. For a Wisconsin farm wife in 1958, with 5 children and a husband on the night milking shift, the chicken paid for itself by Wednesday. About 75 cents per supper. Not a meal. A week. Number 18. The hand-me-down ladder. Children's clothes traveled a fixed route. The oldest girl wore the dress new. The middle girl wore it after, with the hem let down half an inch. The youngest wore it last, with a bow added at the collar to make it feel new. The dress that finally wore out became the patches for the school skirts and the rags for the kitchen. For a Catholic mother of 7 in 1957, South Boston, the ladder eliminated about $90 a year in children's clothing. A week's pay, not used, inherited. Number 17. The brown paper lunch sack. A paper sack from the grocery did not get 1 trip. You folded it flat after lunch, brought it home in your husband's pail, brushed out the crumbs, and used it again Tuesday. The same sack could see 10 lunches. A box of 50 sacks cost 23 cents at the A&P in 1956. For a Detroit auto plant family packing 4 lunch pails every morning, the trick saved about $10 a year. The sack that wore through finally became the wrapping paper for a small Christmas gift. Not a sack. A loop. Number 16. The coffee grounds garden. The morning coffee left about a half cup of grounds. Those grounds did not go in the bin. They went in a tin can under the sink and once a week into the soil around the roses, the tomatoes, the rhubarb at the back fence. For a North Carolina mill worker's wife in 1959, with a vegetable patch that put up 40 quarts of tomatoes by August, the grounds were free fertilizer. A bag of plant food cost $2.50. The grounds did the same work for nothing. About $12 a season saved. Not waste. Yield. Number 15. The bias tape repair. When a hem unraveled on a child's school dress, you did not buy a new one. You stitched a strip of bias tape over the wound in a color close to the fabric. A spool cost 11 cents at the dime store. The dress went back to school Monday, and the patch was so neat the teacher never noticed. For a Minneapolis seamstress's wife in 1960, with 3 girls in the parochial school uniform, the bias tape kept 10 dresses out of the donation pile every year. About $30 a year. Not a patch. A save. Number 14. The heel-end bread pudding. The 2 heels of every loaf, the parts the children would not eat, went into a covered jar on the counter. By Saturday, you had enough crusts to bake a pudding with 2 eggs, a cup of milk, a quarter cup of sugar, a pinch of cinnamon, and the last of the raisins from the Christmas baking. For a Boston longshoreman's wife in 1958 with 5 children, the pudding turned the week's leftovers into Sunday dessert. A boxed dessert mix cost 29 cents. The bread pudding cost 6 cents and fed 7. Not stale. Saved. Number 13. The cast iron inheritance. The skillet came from her mother. The Dutch oven came from her grandmother. The cornstick pan came from an aunt who died in 1947. Cast iron, treated with respect, wiped with bacon fat after every use, and never washed with soap, outlived the woman who used it. For an Iowa farm wife in 1955, cooking 3 meals a day for 9, the pans had cost the family nothing in her lifetime. A new skillet from Montgomery Ward cost $2.49. The set she used would have cost $12 to buy new. That is about $400 in modern money she did not have to spend. Not a tool, a relay. Number 12. The vinegar and water window bottle. Half a cup of white vinegar in a quart of warm water kept in a glass mister under the sink. Wiped on the windows with crumpled newspaper every Saturday morning. The newspaper left no lint. The vinegar left no streak. For a 1958 Akron, Ohio housewife with 8 windows facing the street where every neighbor walked to church Sunday morning, the bottle replaced 2 store-bought cleaners a year. Windex cost 69 cents a bottle. The vinegar bottle cost about 3 cents to fill. Not a product. A bottle. Here is what nobody talks about. The average American household in 1955 carried no consumer debt. Not because credit did not exist, but because the women running those households had been taught by their mothers to treat debt as a failure of planning. Today, the average American household carries $6,700 in revolving credit card debt at 21% interest. That is roughly $1,400 a year in interest alone. The 1955 housewife saved more than that in 3 moves: the bacon tin, the 4-supper chicken, and the turned collar. The chemical industry did not invent better cleaners. The food industry did not invent better suppers. They invented narrower ones. We did not get richer. We got fuller cabinets and emptier wallets. The ledger book never left the drawer. We just stopped opening it. Number 11. The cold water soak. Before any stained shirt saw soap, it went into a basin of cold water in the laundry sink. Overnight. By morning, half the stain had lifted on its own, drawn out by nothing but cold water and time. The remaining half came out with a bar of Fels naphtha rubbed directly on the spot. For a young mother in 1957, Akron, with 3 boys who came home grass-streaked every afternoon, the soak saved about 2 shirts a month from the rag pile. A boy's shirt cost $1.29 at Penny's, about $30 a year, not a treatment. A pause. Number 10, the EGG Money Coffee Can. A coffee can on the top shelf, behind the flour. Every nickel and dime from the egg basket, every coin from the pop bottles the boys returned, every quarter from the husband's coat pocket Sunday night when she brushed it. All of it went into the can. By December, the can held enough for Christmas without a credit slip at the department store. Department store revolving credit charged 18% interest in 1956. The coffee can charge nothing. About $40 a year, gathered 5 cents at a time. Not savings. Insulation. Number 9, the mason jar pantry. The empty jars from last year's pickles, last year's jam, washed in hot water, sterilized in the boiling kettle, stacked on the cellar shelf for August. You did not buy new jars. You bought new lids. A dozen new jars cost $1.49 in 1959. A box of lids cost 19 cents. For a Pennsylvania Dutch farm wife, putting up 60 quarts of pickles, 20 of jam, and 40 of tomatoes, the inherited jars saved about $35 a season. The same jars had been in the cellar since her wedding in 1932. Not glass. Capital. Number 8, the Sunday suit on a hanger. Her husband owned one good suit. After church, it went on a wooden hanger, inside a cotton garment bag her mother had stitched in 1948. It was brushed with a stiff bristle brush. It was aired by an open window for an hour. It was dry cleaned only twice a year. For a Trenton, New Jersey accountant's wife in 1960, the suit lasted 9 years instead of 3. A man's suit cost $42 at Robert Hall, about $140 across a decade in suits never bought. Not vanity. Stewardship. Here is what nobody talks about. The women who ran these households did not see themselves as exceptional. They thought what they were doing was simply what a wife did. A grandmother in 1958 Akron who turned a collar on Tuesday, stretched a chicken across 4 suppers, soaked her boys' jeans overnight, put $1 in the coffee can Sunday, and brushed her husband's suit between services. That grandmother did not think she had accomplished anything. She thought she had done Tuesday. The cultural disappearance of that woman was not an accident. It was a market. Every move she made for free was eventually patented, branded, and sold back to her granddaughter at retail. The collar turning became a tailoring service. The chicken stretching became meal kit delivery. The cold water soak became enzyme spray. The coffee can became a savings app with monthly fees. Every single move Grandma made for nothing now has a price tag and a logo. Her granddaughter is paying every one of those tags on a credit card at 21%. The labor did not get easier, it got monetized. Number 7, the cloth napkin drawer. A drawer in the buffet held 12 cotton napkins, one for each weeknight times 2 weeks of rotation. Each had its own wooden ring with the family member's initial burned into the wood by an uncle in 1947. You used the same napkin 3 suppers in a row, then it went in the wash with the kitchen towels Friday. For a St. Louis bank teller's wife in 1958 with 5 at the table, the drawer replaced about 100 paper napkin packs a year. A pack cost 19 cents, about $18 saved. Not table linen, math. Number 6, the mended sheet. When the middle of a bed sheet wore thin, you did not throw it out. You cut it down the worn center with kitchen scissors, flipped the two halves so the strong outer edges met in the middle, and stitched them together with a flat seam by hand at the kitchen table while the radio played the evening news. The sheet went back on the bed with another 5 years in it. For a Buffalo schoolteacher's wife in 1957 with 4 beds to keep, the trick saved about $12 a year. A new percalo sheet cost $3.49. Not patched. Reversed. Number 5. The Sunday shoe polish. Her husband's one pair of good shoes got polished every Saturday night. A tin of kiwi black polish, a soft cloth cut from an old undershirt, a horsehair brush. 10 minutes at the kitchen table while the radio played the hit parade. The shoes lasted 12 years. A pair from Florsheim cost $12.95 in 1959. For a Cincinnati postman's wife whose husband walked 7 miles a day on a route that started at 6 in the morning, the Saturday night ritual was the difference between a new pair every 3 years and a new pair every 12 years. Not polish. Preservation. Number 4. The borrowed punch bowl. When the family hosted a baptism, a graduation, a wedding shower, you did not buy a punch bowl. You walked across the street and asked Mrs. Petrowski. She walked across the street the next month and asked you for your roasting pan. The roasting pan went to the Mazurkiewicz house the week after for the funeral lunch. A cut glass punch bowl cost $14 in 1958. Nobody on the block owned one. Everybody on the block borrowed one. For a Chicago bungalow neighborhood in 1958, the network meant no household owned anything it used twice a year. About $60 saved per family per year. Not borrowing. Belonging. Number 3, the cash-only envelope. On payday, the husband's check got cashed at the bank, and the wife sat at the kitchen table with 7 envelopes labeled in pencil. Rent, coal, groceries, milk, insurance, church, saving. The cash went in. When an envelope was empty, that category was done for the week. No exceptions. If the grocery envelope ran out Thursday, supper Thursday and Friday came from the pantry, not the store. For a 1956 St. Paul postal worker's wife with 3 children, the envelopes meant the family had never once carried a balance on anything. About $300 a year in interest, never paid. The system had been her mother's and her grandmother's before that, not budgeting. A wall. Number 2, the rule Grandma taught on the wedding day. This was the use she reached for more than any other. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. 4 sentences, 11 words, stitched onto a sampler that hung over the icebox in some kitchens, never written down at all in others. Passed at the kitchen table the week before the wedding from mother to daughter, in a voice that did not invite discussion. For a 1955 bride in any town in the country, Helena, Hartford, Hattiesburg, the rule was the entire household economy, compressed into the time it took to pour a cup of coffee. About $1,500 a year saved, by every measure the Labor Bureau ever ran. The rule was retired the moment a credit card promised the bride she did not have to follow it. Mother to daughter, hand to hand, never patented. Number 1, pay cash or do not buy it. That was it. Before the layaway, before the installment plan, before the credit card with the smiling family on the brochure, the rule was a single line. If the cash was not already in the envelope, the thing was not bought. The refrigerator that broke in 1957 either got repaired by the man down the block who knew Frigidaires, or the family lived out of the icebox until the cash was saved. The shoes the boy needed either came from the cousin in the box on the back porch or waited until Friday. The Christmas tree got bought December 23rd when it was cheap, never December 10th when it was full price. about $0 a year in interest paid in 1958. The rule did 90% of the daily work in a 1950s household budget. The other 24 tricks came in for the other 10%. We have spent 80 years marketing the financing of every problem and forgetting the cash that solved it. The envelope still works. The rule still works. The hand that knows the difference is what we lost. None of these tricks required a degree. None of them required an app, a subscription, or a financial influencer with a podcast. They required attention. The generation that ran America's households understood something the modern aisle and the modern lender have spent 50 years trying to unlearn. Capability is not the same as consumption. A ledger book you balance once a week is worth more than a credit score you check on a phone. The woman who could darn a sock, stretch a chicken across 4 suppers, brush her husband's suit between services, and put $40 in a coffee can by December was not poor. She was equipped. These were not the habits of women who could not afford better. These were the habits of women who knew better. And the moment we forgot, we traded a working ledger for a line of credit at 21%. We traded a coffee can for a savings app. We traded a borrowed punch bowl for a same-day delivery charge. The envelope is still on the table. The rule still works. What was passed hand to hand can still be passed hand to hand. It just has to be passed on purpose now, because nothing in the modern store and nothing in the modern bank is going to do it for us.